Hello, welcome to Workplace Wake Up. I'm Jen Shaw. Every week, I spend about 15 minutes covering key legal developments, introducing you to interesting guests, and providing some entertainment to start your workday. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. I know last week was kind of a tough topic with workplace violence. A lot of you have written to me and let me know that that was a very important but difficult topic for us to address. And unfortunately, I'm going to continue that theme because related to workplace violence and something that we didn't have enough time to talk about last week, I want to talk about this idea of employees who are in crisis. Okay? And here's what I mean by that. You may have employees who have substance abuse issues, who are going through a divorce, who are fighting about legal custody, who are taking care of an ailing parent, who have financial challenges, significant ones, right? And yet we expect these people to come to work, do their job, get everything done, make sure that they are doing what we need as an organization. But if you think about how much time you spend with people from work and how close you can become to people when you work with them for a while and you have a lot in common and you're trying to be, not only a good colleague, but you may socialize outside of work. When somebody is in crisis, it is very, very challenging. It is challenging, obviously, for the person who's undergoing the stress and the anxiety of the crisis. It's difficult for their family members. It's difficult for their coworkers. It's difficult for their leaders. It's just a tough spot to be. And I've been talking to employers recently about things like employee assistance programs and on-site mental health counselors and really wellness programs that are not just about going to the gym to lose weight, but meditation, mindfulness, that sort of thing. And a lot of employers tell me it's too much money. It's just too much. Like, I can't spend that much on an employee wellness program, or I can't spend that much on an EAP, an employee assistance program. And I get it, right? The economy has been crazy. I don't know what's going to happen with the presidential election. I don't know where we're going to end up. I get it. There's a lot of uncertainty out there, and a lot of employers are thinking, okay, what can I do? I mean, my employee's in crisis, but I still have to get my work done. They still have to get their work done. Like, there's not a lot I can do here. There are a couple things that I want to encourage you to do to try to help your employees. Okay, and obviously in HR, most of you went into human resources because you're empathic and you want to help people and you want to make sure that things are done correctly. I mean, all good reasons to be in HR. All good reasons to be employment lawyers, right? Or be labor relations folks. But sometimes we don't know what to do. Sometimes we get so caught up in the emotion of the issue that we can't actually take a step back and come up with pragmatic, practical solutions, step-by-step things that the employee can do. So the first thing that I think is really important is having an EAP program, having an employee assistance program. They're not expensive. There are so many on the market now that you can find very good deals. And you can use them as a real employee benefit that people appreciate. Many EAP programs have components where they will help you find a babysitter. They will help you find a pet sitter. They will help you find a new doctor for your ailing mother. They will help you find a financial planner. They will help you do lots and lots of things. So it's not just mental health counseling or stress reduction that we're talking about. And when you think about recruitment and retaining of good employees, which is a struggle for all of us right now, when you can roll out a benefit that has obvious upside to your employees, something like an EAP program can make a huge difference, particularly if you set it up so that when the employee calls, that is a confidential conversation. No one from the EAP provider calls you to follow up about the employee's particular issues. They remain confidential until the employee wants to share them. The good news is if the EAP provider does their job right, the employee will want to share them, which is incredibly valuable, particularly when you're thinking about preventing workplace violence. Because Most of the violence that is perpetrated in the workplace is because somebody is feeling unhinged. Somebody is exhausted or overworked or feels picked on or feels like they're not getting a fair shot. So if you go into this process realizing that and recognizing the challenges that are posed when you're working with folks who have very different things going on at home, you begin to see the value of something like an EAP program. You begin to see the value of something like having an on-site mental health counselor who folks can talk to once a month, or a mindfulness-based stress reduction class that you offer in your conference room. And I know this seems like fluff and it seems expensive, but when you actually look at it, it isn't. And I think for most of us in HR, we are just overwhelmed right now. We have gone through COVID. Now we've got election things that are coming up. So lots of politics in the workplace. We have new laws coming up at the end of the year. It's just overwhelming. And for some of us to think about taking on a new project or a new benefit, it's just, no, we cannot do that. But I think the benefits far outweigh the cost of putting these programs in place. And there's so much evidence and so many surveys out there to show how much an employee values their employer when they give them something like an EAP program or benefit. So I want you to consider that when employees are in crisis, one of the first things we need to think about is, what can we do for them, right? What can I do? And that requires you to listen to your employee. We've had a number of clients recently who've had employees commit suicide. Every one of those employers has contacted us to say, well, I don't know what I could have done. And then the more we talk to them, the more they're saying, oh my gosh, maybe I could have done more. We didn't have a policy. We didn't roll out our SB 553 program yet, even though it should have been out July 1. There are things we didn't do. And we can see now that there may have been an impact to that. There may have been something negative that has happened to our camaraderie, to our team spirit, to our ability to work together, because people are upset. And the place they can be upset without too many consequences is work, right? So most managers and supervisors are not going to hold somebody accountable under, for example, a performance improvement plan just because they've had a couple of sharp dialogues with someone or they seem on edge, right? But if you're seeing that kind of behavior, that is usually the tip of the iceberg. It is usually something more going on when you see that behavior happen. That behavior is a symptom. It is not the actual problem. So when you think about, what can I do to identify folks who might need help? How can I try to be more visible to my employees? These are all really important issues that don't only, of course, relate to these kinds of situations where employees are in crisis. They also relate to situations where employees might be very happy and they're taking some sort of a vacation, but then you get a text that is very disconcerting. They're in the hospital. You don't know what's going on. We have to take a step back and figure out, okay, how is this going to affect the time they're taking? What do I need to do documentation-wise, right? Are they going to be in crisis? Are we going to have a long rehabilitation period? What's going to happen? So I want us to think about how to help our employees. And everybody is not going to be able to be helped the same way. And what I mean by that is there may be certain things that help employees and other things that don't help them but may help someone else, whether it's an EAP program or some other special program or curriculum that you can do. That's great. That's perfect. But you got to talk about it. You got to think about it. It's good to run it by other people in your industry so they can understand what you're doing and why you're rolling it out and what it means. Okay? So when we look at an employee who's having a tough time, it doesn't mean that we necessarily have to reduce their performance standards or expectations, or that we have to reduce the job duties assigned to them. It might be appropriate to do that. But if it isn't, We're going to do what is appropriate. We're going to give the support when we can. We're going to encourage them to do something like yoga or mindfulness-based stress reduction, something that is going to help. And I know you guys, some of you are thinking right now, this is kind of woo-woo. Like, what are we doing here? But the truth is, we haven't given enough credence to mental health wellness. We haven't done enough. And that's part of why we're seeing so much workplace violence. So we need to be able to think about, okay, what kinds of programs can we put in place? What kinds of resources can we make available to our employees? Now, listen, I'm not saying any of this would have stopped any of the workplace violence incidents that have happened in the last 30 years, right? The first one I became aware of was, I think, 32 years ago when I was in my second year of law school at USF Law School in San Francisco, and the 101 California Street shooting happened with Pettit and Martin. I mean, I don't remember hearing much about shootings or workplace violence before that, but that was a watershed event where this guy, Gianluigi Ferri, he was a former client of the firm. He was furious with them. He felt that they had ripped him off. He marches into the 101 California Street building. You know, now at all the buildings in San Francisco, you need ID and passes, and they check your bags. They didn't check anything then. And he had in his black satchel, a very nice satchel, by the way. He looked like a very professional businessman, marched up to the Pettit and Martin offices through the elevator. Elevator opened and he started shooting. He didn't stop for about 17 minutes. Several people lost their lives, including him. And when they started unraveling the situation, they realized, oh my gosh, this is the same guy who's been writing us those crazy letters for years and years. He had said he was going to do something, but the way he said it just didn't make sense. He was going to poison everybody with MSG, monosodium glutamate. He was going to get ant and roach killer and put it in people's coffee, like really bizarre things. So as time went on and people left the organization, there was no continuity of, okay, are we following this guy? What's happening? And again, I'm not blaming anybody involved with that horrible incident. Absolutely not, except for Mr. Ferri, obviously the shooter. Nobody else. Everybody at Pettit and Martin did what they thought was right. They responded to the incident that day. They got grief counseling for the survivors. The firm actually ended up closing. But when you go back and look at the actual facts, Mr. Ferri had been writing letters for years. He was in crisis. And his employer, who was not Pettit and Martin, they knew he was in crisis and they had tried to help him, and he became incensed and very angry and very distraught, and they ended up firing him. But they kept a watch on him because they thought he was going to come back to their place of employment and do something. They didn't tell the police. They just watched him at the guard shack to make sure that he didn't come in. So when we talk about employees in crisis, there are a lot of different reasons somebody could be in crisis. There are a lot of different things that could be happening, but we have to take a breath as the employer, right? We have to think about, what do our employees need right now? There's a lot of uncertainty in the world. People have relatives in the Ukraine, in Israel, in the occupied territories. There's so much going on. And your employees have to come to work and do their work every day. And they may need a donut here or there. They may need a just nice email saying, how you doing? And when you think somebody's actually in crisis, and by the way, when I say they may need a donut, I don't mean that in some sort of disrespectful, off-the-cuff way. I literally mean you might need to sit down and break bread with them. You may need to sit down and talk to them and be with them and encourage them to share how they are doing. We get so busy these days with all of our multitasking that I find myself walking by someone and saying, hi, how you doing? And I keep walking. I don't stop to listen to the answer. And that's really what we've got to do in the workplace. If we're going to prevent workplace violence incidents and we're going to help employees who are either in crisis or on their way there, we've got to take a breath. We've got to stop. We've got to think strategically. We've got to think creatively. What can we do? How can we help? We owe that to our employees. And we owe that to ourselves. If you're in HR and you are burnt out and you are exhausted and you need a break, find a way to take a break. Most of us have been going nonstop since COVID, and it really hasn't slowed down. At least it hasn't for us. So every once in a while, you just need to take a deep breath. Listen to yourself, listen to your employees, and do what you can. When you know somebody is hurting or they need help, take the extra 5 minutes. Encourage the manager and the supervisor and the coworker to do the same thing. It will make a difference, I promise. Thank you all so much for joining me today. Keep up the good work. Go out and do something nice for someone, everyone. I'll see you next time. Workplace Wake Up, including our guests and hosts, do not provide legal advice in this podcast. Do not act upon any of the information discussed in this podcast without first consulting a licensed attorney in your jurisdiction. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to spread the word, please share it with others. Post about it on social media and/or rate and review it. You can also follow us on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook, and email us at info@shawlawgroup.com.